I want you to think of the scene in The Wizard of Oz where, Dorothy has found, I think, the Tin Man and the lion and the scarecrow already, and they're walking through the woods, and they're like, lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my, right? Well, I have a new one. Triggers and judgment and fear, oh my. Triggers and judgment and fear, oh my. Oh yeah. Did I just trigger you with the word trigger? Way to change the perspective on that song. Perspective. It's all about perspective, isn't it? Yes, it is. Thank you, Candy. That was what the world has now. I love that. And isn't it great that we have more and more and more sweet love? Yeah. Yes? Sweet love, this boundless love. And it is. It's all about perspective. And I believe that we all each came here to be that love and to hold that kind of perspective as we walk through our lives. And to be open to that energetic of that love. And I don't know about you, but in order for me to be open, I have to be willing to examine myself. Oh yeah, y'all are ready to leave right now. Yes, isn't it nice to be our own doctor and examine ourselves? Oh, there's a mole. Oh, right? And I have to be open and willing to examine myself. And okay, y'all, sometimes I don't want to. I just don't. I'm like, can I just stop trying to be so conscious sometimes and awake and aware? Can I just have a vacation from being conscious? Y'all have no idea when you actually are around another science of mind minister that practices this really well all the time, too. Sometimes I do. I just want a break. Like, really, can you? I have to examine myself. You examine me. Who else? Y'all are examining me. I'm like, oh, God, could I just have a break for once? And I didn't even get a break this morning. I just want you to know I was in it again on this topic I'm about to talk about. But of course, it's all about perspective. Our belief systems tend to be about our past experiences. They tend to be that way. Not really, our belief systems aren't on future stuff, right? It's all that stuff in the past that's happened. And our perceptions from our own 5, unless you have more than 5, if you have the 6th sense, our 5 senses, yes? And sometimes it's really what I see is going on may not be what's actually going on, but I see it, and therefore I do believe it at times. And it does take us changing and maybe having a different perspective. I love this book, Love is Letting Go of Fear. If you've read it many, many moons ago like I have, I invite you to read it again because it's a new moon. In fact, this weekend, it's, full moon. It's new. And if you haven't read it, get this book and read it. Love is Letting Go of Fear. And Jampolsky, he talks about that he's inviting us not to have tunnel vision and to actually see and consider the whole picture. I call it the holy picture, the whole holy picture of things, right? And that got a clap. I appreciate that, Candy. And this whole holy picture. And to have a different perspective. So I love what he says here. I had some fun lessons that I get to talk about today. Of course, we decided that I'm the one who needs to talk about them. Because I'm willing to examine myself. Oh, man. This lesson is, he says, I'm never upset for the reason I think. Yeah, I don't know about never, but I'm typically not upset for the reason I think to begin with. And he says, because our physical senses appear to relay information from the outside world to our brain, we may believe that our state of mind is controlled entirely by the feedback we receive. This belief contributes to a sense of ourselves as separate entities who are largely isolated and feel alone in an uncaring and fragmented world. See, we see this. We see all of this, and we tend to believe this. This can leave us with the impression that the world we see causes us to feel upset, depressed, anxious, and fearful. Such a belief system presumes that the outside world is the cause and we are the effect. And he even says it's like backwards, it's upside down, it's outside in, and what we know in the science of mind and our faith and philosophy in the way of life is that we are causal, and this is effect. So it's really from the inside out that the perspective, if we can keep that perspective, that causal effect is going on, and that we're all connected, that even though our senses are attempting to trick us and say that it's separate, we're not. So we are causal and everything is connected, and that means the great news is we actually can, if we want to, and we're willing to examine ourselves, we can be control of our inside, our inner world. I love this quote from the book. He says, "We all have the power to direct our minds to replace the feelings of being upset, depressed, and fearful with the feeling of inner peace and love." Oh, let's just have some of that. Can we just have some inner peace and love right now? Yeah, well, that's pretty easy right now. We can do that because right now we're not thrown off. But there are two things, at least for me, that can throw me off really quick. You know, I want you to think of the scene in The Wizard of Oz where, you know, Dorothy has found, I think, the Tin Man and the lion and the scarecrow already, and they're walking through the woods, and they're like, lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my, right? Well, I have a new one. Triggers and judgment and fear, oh my. Triggers and judgment and fear, oh my. Oh yeah. Did I just trigger you with the word trigger? Some people are triggered by that word. Yeah, so triggers. Watch out. There's a trigger zone ahead. So something happens, someone says something, an occurrence takes place near you, and all of a sudden, bam, there's a trigger, and it pushes our buttons, doesn't it? Anybody not have any buttons installed? I have a few. So it pushes our buttons, and we're highly triggered. And when we're highly triggered, what I've come to find is when I feel that, and I do feel it, it's like, typically it's a physical sensation in my body of some sort that alerts me, like, trigger zone, I'm in the trigger zone. And so when I start to feel that, what I've come to understand is there's probably going to be some truth in here for me as I am willing to examine myself. And so if we're open to that, and we can it can reveal something to us. Eckhart Tolle talks about this, that we can actually have vigilance, make it a spiritual practice, and have vigilance of these trigger moments. You know, if you think about this right now, what are some moments in your life that tend to trigger unconsciousness in you? Just trigger unconsciousness, and what I mean by that, you know, spiritually speaking, is like something's taken over, and it's typically reactive, habitual patterns of thinking and behavior, and we tend to become angry, defensive, moody, or negative. So if you just think about it right now, what are some of these triggers for you? Anybody want to shout one or two out? Politics, judgment, being disvalued. Car wrecks. Marriage. Whoa. No one's in that arena that's married. What else? Wait. Finances. Family. Racial discrimination. Misunderstood. So we have a few, don't we? We have a few things that'll trigger us, yes. And so one of the things that I'd like for us to do, if we're willing, is to begin to start taking mental notes like this. We know what they are. Let's start taking some mental notes about things that actually trigger each of us to become unconscious. And by the way, if you don't know, you can ask your spouse or your friend or your partner or someone, and they'll tell you what triggers you. So begin to take notes about these triggers. It could be significantly important to do that because as we know, what pushes our buttons, then we can become incredibly vigilant if we want to when this occurs. At the very moment that they arise, and they will, again and again in our life. And this way, as we become aware of them and we become vigilant that we're not going to let them take over and make us go unconscious, then what happens is they begin to lose their power to pull us into that unconsciousness or negativity. And I don't know about you, but sometimes that can last for a little bit. And I don't mean 4 minutes. 4 hours or days or whatever, right? It can just, that unconsciousness and that negativity, it can just take over very quickly. So what can we do? Well, I think the first thing to do is when we feel that button is to stop, drop, and breathe. Just breathe. Just breathe. The button's been pushed, I've been triggered, just breathe. And then to start questioning, okay, well, what has got me stuck right now? What is this? Am I angry? Am I embarrassed? Do I feel guilty? Maybe a little shame coming up? Or, what's up right now? To get a handle on that. And that'll help us. And then to start uncovering some beliefs. If we have a different perspective and we look at it from the whole picture, I begin to start questioning like, well, something triggered me this morning. I told you. I just happened to, when I was not coming in as early as I like to, and so I was feeling a little rush, and I got in my car, and as I got in my car, I looked, and everything in my glove box and everything around me was just thrown everywhere. So someone had been in my car overnight. Oh, that's okay. Oh, no, I know. And where did I go? I got triggered. And when we get triggered, we tend to, or at least I do, maybe it's just me, I want to point it everywhere else out there. And I went, Petra left the car unlocked. I did, I got triggered. And I went to blaming, and I had to go, well, I had to stop, because I'm talking about this. First I stopped and I breathed, and I just looked around, and I'm like, okay, I really don't have time to deal with this right now. And then I went, okay, and I was triggered, and I got angry. I went, I'm angry. Why? Oh, because it's her fault. Oh, she left the car. She used the car to go to Costco yesterday, and she left it unlocked. And, I just started going, I won't tell you all the things I thought really quick. And I'm like, no. And then I went, oh, but is that true? And I went, oh, well, actually, I helped her get the stuff out of the car, and I was the last one in the car, and I had the mental note, when you get upstairs, lock the car. And I didn't. I started looking at the bigger picture and the whole perspective, and I had a different perspective. I'm like, well, you going to stay angry at Petra? No. Okay. Are you going to? Okay. So I stretched myself. And I got a different perspective. And then I went to gratitude. And I went, well, maybe because the car was unlocked, they didn't smash the window. All I know is right now it doesn't look like a lot's been taken. I'm just grateful that I still get to have a car. They didn't steal it, and I'm driving to the center, and here I am, right? But I stopped, dropped, breathed, did that, looked, is this true? Got a different perspective. See how easy that was? And I didn't let that hang around me for our rest of the time together. So we can meet these triggers in a new place of a heightened awareness, of consciousness. and choose new responses rather than falling into old reactions. I love this quote by Martha Beck. She says, as you grow more practiced in noticing your triggers, offering yourself kindness, that's important, and remembering that the power to heal your life is always available in the present moment, the situations that once set you off lose their explosive potential. So I did offer myself a little kindness that I went straight to Petra, and then like, oh, actually it was sort of me, and that didn't explode on me. Now, as significant as triggers can throw us into the fear instead of love, there's one other. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Triggers, judgment, and fear, oh my. There's another one, it's judgment, right? And despite our best efforts, no matter what we do, we can all judge. Is there anyone here that has zero judgment? Good, because I thought we were going to have to, knight a saint. So, he talks about that too. He talks about, today I will judge nothing that occurs. Okay, that's the lesson. Have you ever given yourself the opportunity of going through just one day, concentrating on totally accepting everyone and making no judgments? So, if we haven't, pick a day, like tomorrow, one day where we're doing our best. Most of us think we would find that a very difficult task, since it is a rare occurrence to spend a few moments, let alone a whole day, with someone without making a judgment. When we think about it, many of us will be appalled at how often we condemn others and ourselves. We may even feel that it is almost impossible to stop being judgmental. However, all that is really necessary is our willingness to practice being non-judgmental without expecting instant perfection. Okay, so for the perfectionists in the room, just don't go there. We're just practicing being non-judgmental. The relinquishing of old habits that we do not want comes from repeated and sustained practice, and we know that. Most of us manifest a condition that would be called tunnel vision. Like I said earlier, we don't see people as a whole. We see just a fragment of a person, and our mind often interprets what we see as a fault. Most of us were brought up in a home and school environment where emphasis was placed on constructive criticism, which actually is usually a disguise for fault finding. On those occasions when we observe ourselves repeating the same mistake with our spouses, our children, our friends, and even someone seen only casually, it may be helpful for us to quiet our minds, observe our thoughts, and become aware that being a fault finder is totally dependent on our past experiences. So we've been trained this way, and I especially have been trained that way. I was with a fault finder quite a bit, and so I've been trained, and so now we're gonna invite this new perspective to open up, to begin to practice letting go of the judge of ourselves and of others. So what are some ways that we could do this? Well, we could start with, don't blame yourself. Just really begin the practice of not blaming ourselves. Our brains are hardwired for survival. We know that. Most of the time, a situation can occur where we go to fear, and most of the time, it's not, like Peter said last week, going to cause us death, right? So we get into this freeze mode, this fight or flight, and we're unable to see all these possibilities and the reasons for another's behavior. And we might get a little tight and defensive and judgmental. And so, again, the way to do this is to not blame ourselves, because this is how we're wired, but we're going to open up to a new perspective, and we're going to stop, drop, and pause and breathe. So that's number one. Just pause. When the judge pops up its head, first of all, just don't blame yourself that you're judging. Don't start judging yourself for judging. And pause. Okay? So that's one thing you can do, is to pause. The second thing is to be mindful. To be mindful. And to be mindful before you speak, but be mindful before we send a text, be mindful before an email, just be mindful. And to just pause before we act or say, because once it's out of our mouth, it's hard to take it back, isn't it? Once the judge comes out. So inside ourselves, to take that different perspective, we want to try to rephrase that critical internal thought that is perhaps going on and rephrase it into a positive one, or at least one that's neutral. If you can't get to positive, get to neutral. So pause inside yourself, begin to rephrase it, and begin to make it positive. Because after all, we don't know what is the whole thing, what's wholly going on. There might be reasons for whatever we're seeing or witnessing. We don't know what's happening in the other person's life. Third thing, I'm practicing on this. Depersonalize it. Don't take things personally. Depersonalize it. So when someone disagrees with us, or someone is making something difficult, or whatever's happening, to go to, it's probably not about us. And to depersonalize it. Try to give people the benefit of the doubt. Because, again, we don't know what's going on, and we tend to think that it's about us, when actually it probably has nothing to do with us. And most of us walking around nowadays are really good at hiding things. We're not letting people know what's going on in our lives. And so we don't know what's happening in someone else's life. This is one that my beloved has really etched inside of me, and I'm grateful. Look for the good. Begin to look for the good in things, because there's basic goodness in everyone. And start looking for that good. And it takes practice, because again, our minds, our brains are wired to look for the negative, to look for the stuff that isn't good. So we want to look for the good. And as we do that, we're probably going to find good in what's happening or in the other person right now. Like I got to, I'm grateful the car wasn't unlocked, because there was good that came out of it. The window wasn't smashed. Now, this is a really good one, and this is a new one for me. And you can use a mantra. We have lots of mantras. But this is at least a new mantra that I'm going to take up in my life that I found. The mantra is, just like me. Just like me. Just like me. Just like me. And that mantra is like, we're probably, whatever's happening, we're more alike than we're different. Just like me. This person's just like me. And that settles the judge and quiets the judge. And that this person, just like me, loves their family. I'm sure of it. You know, this person, just like me, wants to get to work on time. This person, just like me, wants to be happy and free of suffering. And this mantra of just like me, to begin to go, what are the things that I know is true about this person that's just like me? And then that, too, takes a different perspective and opens up that judge. Now, this one's a little more challenging, but it has paid off for me a lot. When the judge comes up, begin to look at your own self, this self-examination, this behavior. You know, it's very interesting. driving was mentioned earlier. I can't tell you how many times I start judging someone for not using their blinker. And then I think about my behavior in the past 10 minutes, and sure enough, I haven't used my blinker at least 3 or 4 times. And there it is. That judgment came up, and when I look at my own behavior, I'm like, well, there it is, because I was doing it too. So, and then the last one I want to share is Brene Brown tells us to feel good about ourselves. And when we feel good about things about our own life and the way we're showing up or whatever, the more we tend to feel good about ourselves, the more we tend to feel good about others. And the judge doesn't come up as often. So if I feel good about, let's say you feel good about your parenting, then you tend to not judge much about other people's parenting. Yes? If I feel good about my weight and how I feel in my own body, I tend to not have the judge come up with other people's weight or body, right? And so the more that I am able to embrace and love myself, that helps to quiet the judge. So what this book talks about that I'm going to invite us all to do, in addition to watching our triggers and watching the judgment, is instead of being a fault finder, what I'm going to invite us to do is we're going to be a love finder. Can we just start being a love finder? We're going to find the love. We're going to look for the love. We're going to be that love. We're going to concentrate on the strengths of others. Start concentrating on the strengths of every single person around us instead of perhaps their weaknesses. Play to those strengths. Compliment those strengths. Shout out those strengths. I love it when you do this. That's such a strength of yours. And to be this love finder. We're just like, we're putting on the love finder beacon, and we're looking for ways that we can find that love to accept others, to accept ourselves, and to begin to realize and know that life is a boomerang, and the more we give out and we find that love and we be that love, it's just going to keep coming back to us. Yes? So I want to end, and I'm going to invite the practitioners up. I'm going to end on a Holmes quote, and then we're going to go right into prayer from this. It's a powerful quote that Holmes gives us that can take us into our week of having a different perspective. So I invite you to take this into your whole self. When Jesus said that we should not judge lest we be judged, he was stating the action of the law of cause and effect. If we wish a complete clearance from any sense of condemnation about ourselves, we must first be certain that we have released all condemnation of others from our own minds. When we do this, we meet others in a new light, and reaching back of all judgment and criticism, establish a relationship between the spirit that is within them and the same spirit that is within us. For God is one in all people. For God is one in all people. For God is one. One power, one presence, one love. It unabashedly gives to itself. It unabashedly loves itself. It unabashedly supports itself. It unabashedly shows itself in all of its grand and diverse and glorious ways. It need not judge. It need not be triggered. It need only be the love that it is. And as I know this love, as God, as Spirit, the universal present, I know this love as me. And as I know that that is what I am, I know that is what you are. And we are bound together collectively in this universal love, this unconditional love that unabashedly gives to itself fully and freely. And so it's in this moment that we each within ourselves can uninstall that trigger button, take up a new perspective, look at the whole of the situation, circumstance, person. Look at it from the eyes and the ears and the senses of love, and be causal from within. It is at this moment that we can choose to lessen the judge of ourselves and others, and to be that power, and to be that presence, and to walk as that love, to be gentle with ourselves and others, to be kind with ourselves and others, to pause and check within. And as we do that, we are the causality of love in life itself, more and more. And so it is.